there is major buzz among the Chinese power circles that Xi Jinping's position seems to have become untenable in the wider CCP. And this was sparked by Xi Jinping's absence from the BRICS Summit. Here at CNN News 18, we told you that he's been absent from major public meetings and sightings for at least 2 to 3 months now. And we said that there could be a leadership change in sight. Here at CNN News 18, we were the first to tell you that. But this BRICS absence has led to spectacular claims that he's aiming to either consolidate his position in the party and push his agenda, or maybe he's just being sidelined. This also comes as the BRICS nations have taken a firm stand against terror, backing Bharat's position against terrorism. Now, as per top intelligence sources, the CCP feels Xi Jinping is now a liability to China's long-term stability. The old guard of the CCP is now disillusioned with Xi Jinping's rigid ideology. CCP wants China to come back from ideological isolation. And Xi Jinping is clinging to power amid rising internal dissent and failures. He continues to be the central figure, but the people all around him are being slowly removed and his position being weakened. Xi Jinping's over-centralization is seen as fracturing the party unity. And spying on senior party leaders is also weakening institutional morale. Removal of trusted officials and purges deepening internal security. CCP aims to maintain integrity of the military force and economic control. So what's going to happen next? And is there a leadership change in the offing? Is this being directed and driven by Xi Jinping? Or those who believe Xi Jinping is no longer going to be president for life? His time is over as leader of the CCP, the PLA, and of course as leader of the People's Republic of China. Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey is with us, former GOC 15 Corps. Professor Brahma Chalani is also with us, strategic affairs expert. My namaste and Jai Hind to you gentlemen. Thank you for your time. General Pandey, how do you see this?
It's something very, very surprising that Xi has decided to miss the first time ever, because actually BRICS, something like SCO was driven by China towards the north, but BRICS was another one which was rest of the major powers coming all together as a counter to the Western hegemony in terms of economy and military prowess, but more in terms of economic prowess. This first time he's missing out. There are a number of reasons for it. I think one of the most important reason is his domestic concerns as of now, in which a lot of people are saying that due to some pushback which has taken place within the party, he is trying to hand over certain important organs. He's trying to divest himself from his very, very important positions and powers to the party itself, to a variety of the organizations which are there. If you recall, the moment he came in the first time in 2012, he very quickly tried to strengthen his hold in the entire major thing. He took the control of party, the presidency, and of course, the most important, he became the chairman of CMC, the military commission, which is the most powerful thing. And then he went through the purges. What has also happened is that in last about 20 years, his economy has taken a very, very steep rise in terms of progress. And that has led to a number of friction, which is heat has been generated in the country itself. So if you remember that very, very critical things are falling apart, that means one is the market, one is the housing market, which is collapsed actually. And the second is with the current challenge which is coming out from Trump on his nearly 400 odd billion dollar export, there is certain pushback which will happen. So these are external and internal challenges. I think both have combined. When you are an authoritative regime or autocratic, technically an autocratic regime, when there are challenges, you can't leave the location, how much ever powerful you may be. Right, I think this is one of the very, very important facets.
Yeah, the employment rates have also ballooned to 15%, which is quite shocking, and its rate of growth, China's GDP rate of growth, has also plateaued for a long period of time. So there are those economic struggles and personnel struggles also. Quickly, before we bring in Brahmachalani ji, just who are all the options after Xi Jinping, who are in the fray, the contenders? Let's try and understand this. There is Li Qiang. He's a long-time aide of Xi Jinping. He was appointed Prime Minister in 2023. The head of State Council oversees China's economy. Then there is Wang Huning. He is the head of the Political Consultative Conference, CCP's chief theorist, and he served under 3 presidents. There is Zhao Leji, the former leader of the anti-corruption movement. and he's chairman of the National People's Congress, and he's seen as a key constitutional and legal expert. And of course, there is Li Hongzhong. He's the vice chairman of the National People's Congress. He's a key Xi loyalist and influential figure within the CCP. And of course, there are Wang Yang and Zhu Jia, who are the military and the economic faces from the Hu Jintao faction. So there are those two names also. Professor Brahmachalani, what do you think is happening? Is there going to be a Xi loyalist or perhaps one of the other factions within the CCP that is going to wrest control?
It's important to remember, Anand, that a one-man dictatorship looks strong until suddenly it begins to collapse. This is the inherent weakness of any one-man dictatorship. It's very clear now, ever since the May Politburo meeting was not held on schedule, that something amiss is happening in China. There is an intensifying intra-party power struggle. The power struggle appears to be clearly aimed at getting Xi Jinping to return to collective leadership. Not to force him out, but to make him return to collective leadership, because we are seeing in recent months the rise of some veteran leaders. These veteran leaders had actually been sidelined in the past. They had retired or been sidelined, like Hu Jintao. They have reasserted themselves, and their main thrust appears to be that old model of collective leadership needs to be restored, because this one-man dictatorship is too risky for China. But even more alarming is another development, because as we all know that since he became the supreme leader virtually in 2012, Xi Jinping has carried out many purges. He has purged hundreds of military generals and admirals, party leaders, etc. But now, the key military allies of Xi Jinping, the top generals that he was relying upon, they have either been removed suddenly, or they are under investigation, or they have died mysteriously. Now, this is incredible, that in such a short period of time, key military figures who were seen as Xi's top advisors and loyalists, they have suddenly disappeared. It indicates that something is happening in China, and everything we know that in any dictatorship, power struggles tend to be very bloody and very vicious. And the Communist Party has a record, as we all know, in civilian lives. That's the reason why under communist rule, tens of millions of Chinese have died. They have perished in witch hunts, in man-made famines like the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, in the Tiananmen Square massacre. This is a party that will go down in history as a party that is actually soaked in blood of its own people. And so, given that culture and given that history of the CCP, it's not a surprise that the power struggle that is ongoing today is a vicious one.
Well, there is the aspect of certain impending conflict to try and deflect the attention away from the internal tribulations. We'll include that in another aspect that I'd like our experts to speak in the limited time that we have. And that dimension is China's attempt to try and defame the Rafale. Is this a post-Operation Sindoor effect? Because a day after Indian Army exposed the China-Pak nexus in Operation Sindoor, a shocking revelation has emerged from the French military and intelligence report that claimed that China deployed its embassies across the world to promote a disinformation campaign, sowing doubts about the performance of Rafale jets during the India-Pakistan clashes or during Operation Sindoor. Now, Beijing tried to hammer reputation and sales of France's fighter jet, I'm quoting from that report, intelligence report. Defense attaches in China's foreign embassies led the charge. China tried to persuade countries not to buy more Rafale jets. China wanted to encourage buyers to choose Chinese-made planes. Now, this poses a huge question. Is this a threat to China's defense technology? And is Rafale's air dominance a worry for the Dragon? Is this an Op Sindoor impact? General Pandey, your thoughts?
Look, Anand, firstly, this revelation has actually come from the French, right? So there's one part we need to take it with that with pinch of salt, because the French are saying may not be so right, because they need to protect their own military-industrial complex. So somebody may argue on this facet, but let us come to the actuals on ground, right? So the entire Chinese integrated system, that means the weapon platforms, their radar systems, their missile systems, and the communication systems, which are all supposed to be integrated and very, very hyped, and virtually were run by positioned and run by the Chinese expert in this scenario. They got decimated, right? Nowhere in the world ever it happens that you cross the wall of a ED defense, and thereafter either you are like Five Eyes supported Israel with fantastic systems wherein people have gone inside and thereafter done a major operation in Iran the way they did in Operation Lion Rose. We can talk of it sometime later. But the way we went after the entire wall, ED wall, and we breached and destroyed 11 airfields and much, much more in one night, in about half an hour's time. You know, it just laid bare everything about the Chinese equipment. So when you go for SEAD operations, when you carry out these operations, these systems have failed. They had a lot of value, 81% of entire Pakistani equipment. They just couldn't do a fig about it. So, you know, the Pakistanis and the Chinese have got a very fantastic information campaign system. Unfortunately, we don't have. In India, somehow we lack this entire thing. This whole business of planned thing being done by the, they call it a new term called, their ambassadors are now the places where they go out very aggressively selling their own pitch, ideas, ideologies, and of course the commercial interest. And it was very important for them to sell this commercial interest. Trust me, nobody in the world is going to buy the Chinese equipment in the near future. It was in any case not buying, but in the current future, it may not so very, very be welcome to the as a system. So I think it was back and carry out these campaigns. They got huge embassies all over the world, and they tried to pitch and sell. It was not primarily against Rafael, I guess. It was primarily to sell their own product, that their product is very, very good system.
Professor Brahmacharlani, will you take the French claims with a pinch of salt, or would you say that the Chinese are actually studying, they are actually working out, and they each will look at their own interests? But where does that leave Bharat?
China is seeking to expand its defense exports. It's already one of the world's top exporters of defense equipment, and so are the French. So the French and the Chinese are competitors in the world markets. But it's clear to anybody looking at what happened in the 3-day India-Pakistan military hostilities that the Chinese weapon systems came up short. They were found inadequate to the task. Once the political leadership in India gave the go-ahead to the military to take out Pakistani air defenses and bomb their air bases, which happened only after 24 hours. In the first 24 hours, as India's Chief of Defense Staff has publicly acknowledged, there was a tactical mistake. The tactical mistake was that the political leadership did not allow the military to follow the first principle of air warfare, which is that you first try and target, you destroy, you neutralize the enemy's air defenses. Instead, the political leadership demanded that the Indian armed forces hit terror camps without first neutralizing Pakistan's air defenses. But once the political leadership gave that permission, clearly Pakistan's China-based air defenses proved totally inadequate to the Indian onslaught. But there is also a larger question that we should not forget, that India's own Chief of Defense Staff, that too on foreign soil, acknowledged some warplane losses. Where was the need for India to officially acknowledge losses of some warplanes? Where was the need? Do countries, for example, Israel, look at the news blackout that it imposed on its own losses? Or, for example, when Iran said that it actually shot down more than one American F-35, that news was blacked out by the Western media. No country admits losses in a war situation, and we unnecessarily gave ammunition to the disinformation campaign by acknowledging officially some warplane losses. This was a needless step, and that too on foreign soil. But the point to note is that India's Operation Sindoor exposed certain key gaps in Pakistan's defenses. Now, Pakistan, for example, is seeking to address those gaps by seeking defense equipment from places elsewhere, not from China, from elsewhere. For example, it's in negotiations with Germany for German air defenses, for example. Clearly indicates that even Pakistan has lost confidence in the Chinese weapon systems that it possesses.
General Pandey?
Yeah, and look, I so much agree with Chalani-ji that there was just no, I think we discussed this in one of your other discussions, that in operations or even thereafter, you are not required to declare your losses, even if you have had one, till the time the enemy comes out and proves it to you, it is there, right? That is first the principle of confidentiality of any operation, because every time when you declare you had a loss or you had a major success, the enemy knows that these are the weaknesses in the system, or these are the weaknesses in his system which he requires to plug. So when an operation is ongoing, and even thereafter, when the major countries, any country, goes out and says that we had X, Y, Z losses in so operations. These are kept under wraps because it is an intelligence requirement of the enemy country and its allies to try and find out how did they succeed or fail. When you tell them that you succeeded or failed, you are actually letting down the cat out of the house and cat out of the bag and letting them know what happened. So I think that is one very, very major flaw which happened. This system of great amount of honesty to come out and speak is somewhere we need to start looking at. When you want to be a geopolitical power, you need to start working in the realm of geopolitical how people play out. And he gave
True, I agree. But gentlemen, as we got to wind up, I just want to understand, where is the talk about our own capabilities? Okay, France is doing what it wants to do. China is doing what it needs to do. Where are we going and telling the world, listen, we can develop all of this for you and we can do it far better and we can execute much better? Are we taking that story to the world? General Pandey.
I wish every time to believe that actions speak louder than words may not be right. What you're saying, Anand, and you're indicating is possibly we need to talk about our systems, while there are demands, people have seen how BrahMos has operated, but it's not only BrahMos, there are large number of equipment which have been arrayed and utilized in this 88 hours operation, which Pakistan actually not only kneeled, it keeled over actually, and it keeled over on the last day when they got total shock, the way they got mauled and treated. I think we need to go around tom-tom about it. Merely Raksha Mantri ji going and speaking in one forum or other is not adequate. I think the embassies need to take the lead. We need to learn the best practices of our competitors. Right. And in case the Pakistanis and Chinese are going tom-tomming about what has happened, we also need to go around and
especially
do
when
the
we
same
have
thing.
already demonstrated what we have done.
Absolutely.
We should just add a few words to our actions. I think that's what needs to be done, and the world should be talking about what Bharat is doing rather than vice versa.
Network 18 is now the clear leader in digital media, with 55% more users on native platforms and social media than Times Internet. Network 18, the undisputed leader of news networks, way ahead of the times.